Welcome to Keep Rolling. Now I've been riding flat for around 2 years now, and I can honestly say that I rarely, if ever, get any Wheelbite these days. I figured out some ways of skating and also some ways of setting up my skates, which basically eliminate this problem with a little bit of practice. So if you're thinking about transitioning over to riding flat, or if you're struggling with your current flat setup, I've got some great tips and tricks which should really help to shorten your learning curve and allow you to get all the benefits of the flat setup and none of the Wheelbite. So let's get into it. So my first tip is change the way you wax. Now when you're riding anti-rocker, you can get away with waxing quite a narrow strip of a ledge because the anti-rocker wheels are so hard that if they do touch any of the surfaces, they're basically going to slide without too much of a problem. But your middle wheels when you're riding a flat setup are obviously going to be a bit softer, so if they do come into contact with this ledge, this is when you can get some wheel bite. But waxing a slightly wider strip on the top of a ledge can really help when the wheels do touch, as it just gives them that extra assistance to continue to slide along the ledge without biting and sticking and making you go flying. Now this tip is particularly valuable when you pair it with tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to ride harder wheels on the inside. Now if you're new to the idea of wheel hardness, essentially it's measured using the A scale, with the lower the number, the softer the wheel, the higher the number, the harder the wheel. So the way I like to skate is with a softer wheel on the outside, like this 88A, and that allows me to keep my grip and control, particularly when I'm riding on slippier surfaces. But with a harder wheel such as this 92A on the inside, which basically is obviously harder and slicker, so if it does come into contact with the grinding surface, it's far less likely to bite up, particularly if the surface is well waxed. Tip number 3 is to get low. And this is particularly important when you're doing H-block tricks. If you think about your wheels kind of coming to contact with a surface, if you're doing something like a front side and you're stood right up, then the wheel's basically just going to come straight into contact. Whereas if you are leaning right over, that's pushing the wheels further away from the grinding surface, meaning they're far less likely to bite. It kind of sounds obvious, it takes a bit of practice, but this is really effective in avoiding wheel bite. Tip number 4 is choose the right frame for your ability level. So if you've been skating anti-rocker for all of your life, I'd recommend going with something which has got some really good inbuilt wheel bite protection, just to make life as easy as possible for you. So something like the Wish medium frame with these nice blocks over here is going to give you, a really nice introduction to riding flat. It's got a really nice groove, so if you pair it with these other 3 tips, I think that's going to make your life as easy as possible. I would avoid going for something like the Solar frame, for example, which is a really great frame, but as you can see, the wheel bite protection is nowhere near kind of extensive. This is a great frame once you get the hang of flat, but it's definitely less forgiving in the in the wheel bite area. And finally, my last tip is to practice and stick at it. If you've been skating anti-rocker forever and you do transition over, it definitely does take a little while to get used to. I found that to start with, I kind of couldn't get my head around it, and I just kept continuing to think about how my wheels were going to stick up on my next ride and I was going to go flying. It does happen a few times when you first when you first get into riding flat, but with time, with practice, I promise you that it does go away. It does get easier, and these days, using these tips, I can ride flat basically without thinking about my middle wheels at all, and I rarely, if ever, get any wheel bite. So I hope you found this video helpful, and this really helps to make your transition into flat skating as smooth and bite-free as possible. Give this video a thumbs up if you did get some value, and also leave me a comment if you've got any great tips that you want to share. Leave them down below, and it'd be really helpful to the community. Also, if you want to see more content from this channel, be sure to hit subscribe. It really helps to support the channel and make sure you don't miss any of these uploads. I'm Chris Chadwick of Keep Rolling. Thanks for watching. See you next time.